Hello everyone, Remington here, your host of the Deeper Energy Podcast. Our guest today tells her story which recounts the destructive power of secrets, shame, and isolation, and how she used art to reconstruct her own identity through the creation of the character Lala Drona in fiction and eventually in the real world. Her experience with a unilateral breast agenesis created a unique frame from which she sees the world and the role of our bodies within it. Since the body part in question was her breasts, and breasts are strongly linked to femininity, motherhood, and sexual attractiveness, she has a unique outlook on the construction and power of these topics within our culture and society. Much of her work looks at alternative realities, the digital world, and the physical world. This is inspired by her experience of having a breast implant to reconstruct the left breast and having a natural breast on the right side. She constantly embodied experiences between the simulation and the natural/real. She is currently creating a documentary which recounts her experiences as a teenager growing up to the present day and her final decision to not have a piece of Tupperware, as she so bluntly stated in our conversation on the other side. So this documentary covers topics such as shame, secrets, and the role of the human body in our everyday social interactions. What I found very interesting was the creative way in which she dealt with her secret body. This creation of a fictional universe from a young age, one in which she still uses today for creative inspiration, and with this persona, Lala Drona. You can see her work by looking her up on Instagram at Drona Lala. Her blog also is called basedonafact.com and her website laladrona.com, which we listed as links in the show notes and description of this video. As you are all aware of by now, this podcast is separate from my controlling and management roles at my wife's pharmacy. It is, however, part of my desire and effort to bring high quality information about health, religion, science, and the related tools for navigating these topics to you, the listener. For the last year or so, Eric and I have been figuring out how to run a weekly podcast with new and interesting guests while maintaining an above average production quality, and to be honest, I underestimated the time such an endeavor required. In order for us to not only continue down this path, but to create even better content for you, I'm humbly asking you for your support. The best way to support this podcast is to check out our website, therealremington.com, and contribute what you think via the PayPal link in the top menu, or visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/deeperenergy, which is also linked up in the menu on the website. I want to take this moment to personally thank each and every one of you that listen to our show. I see the statistics, and it always warms my heart to see the downloads. It keeps the furnace of creativity and perseverance burning strong. So thank you for that, and thank you for being part of what we're trying to do here. And now, without further ado, please enjoy the conversation with the beautiful and talented Lala Drona. Remington it is. That's the name that my mother gave me. I've had to answer this question so many times about, where it came from. And I don't know if she just watched that series. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 38. So around that 1983, I think this Pierce Brosnan series was like full on here at Remington Steel.
Okay, no, I don't know it. I'm 33, so
Yeah.
88, but
yeah, like Pierce Brosnan, I never watched it either because it was like I was 1 year old when it was popular. But my mom, I'm kind of thinking like, did she really take the name of like a Pierce Brosnan character and give that to me? But she said she got it out of a name book, so.
it's a good name though. I grew up in a neighborhood. The community or the neighborhood was called Remington, so that's what it like evokes for me as a childhood. And I had a great childhood, so good positive things for me.
Cool. You were in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. And how long have you been in Paris?
I've been here since 2012, so that's 9 years now. Yeah. I mean, in between, I've traveled. There was a year that I did an art tour. Like I went to different European countries and did different art residencies and exhibitions. And then there was another year where I lived in China for a year. So there were 2 years in there, but besides that, I've just been living in France.
Can I talk to you about this thing as moving away from the States for a second?
Yeah.
That's just, we have that in common. So it's interesting to have somebody that's done that. What was it like for you? Like, did you go straight to France, straight to Paris? Is that like your first contact with really trying to live in Europe, or?
No. Can I ask you quickly, where are you living?
I'm living in Germany. I'm like in the northern part of Germany, close to the Baltic Sea.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, so we're not too far, I guess, as far as Europe goes. But yeah, so I think I started, like, my mother, she's from Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have some family in Venezuela. So when I was around 14 and then 18, I went there. I went there again in my 20s. But I studied in Chile for 1 year during university. And then I studied for 1 year in Brazil in university. And I think I just got the travel bug. And, I'm also an artist. So I just really wanted to start my career and my life in Paris and see what it was all about. But it was really hard. It was really hard first moving here. I don't know. It was really difficult to acclimate, I guess, or to get used to it. Just living in a big city and the noise and everything.
Yeah, we were in Paris just it's my first time actually being in Paris instead of just coming to the airport. We drove through with the whole family. We have like a bus. We did this whole, van life thing it's not van life. It's like 3 weeks life with the kids in the bus. And we drove into Paris. We camped at a campsite in the city. Oh. And you instantly realize, obviously, right? Of course, there's just everything's going on there, And after like the whole day of traveling, I ended up going like the wrong way, of course. And so we're like in this tiny little area, and we had to do like a 500-point turn to get back to the campsite and stuff. But I know it's the way that you said that, like it takes, you kind of underestimate what it takes to get into the act, this person that you are before you leave, and like this, you're living in this area. Everyone speaks English, and you can communicate, and you're as an artist, or just, I can tell you're just a communicative type of person. Do you remember how that felt? Like I remember just sitting at parties and stuff, and I had to learn German at the same time, and wanting to, like, I'm such an expressive person. It was so depressing to me that I couldn't like say exactly what I was feeling. It took so much. I don't know. It just took me a long time to get over that. I was probably like for a first year, just like couldn't come out of that shell, And then I became like even more introverted, which is not really a good thing, right? I mean, hell, it doesn't help you to learn, or I don't know. That whole process was just, I don't know. Just I felt like I had to grow like a whole nother personality or something like that. It sounds weird, but.
No, but I totally know what you're talking about. I think that I do have this theory that we all have a different personality in different languages that we speak, because humor is different. The communication is different. I remember when I first got here, when I first started interacting with French people, the biggest miscommunications were they sometimes they answer just with a face, like they give an expression. And I guess Americans, we always answer with at least a sound. We'll say or oh, or something, but sometimes French people will just answer with a face, and their faces that are only understood in the French language, or at least in France. And these different facial expressions mean different things. And so for me to learn that was an entirely different language. And at first I just thought people were making weird faces at me, like I should stop talking or something. But then I realized they were actually answering me with the face, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. But
I never knew that either. That's not a German thing, so it's definitely just a French thing. We were just on this vacation thing, so I guess when you're on vacation, it's not really. But an everyday conversation, that would be weird, yeah. So you're kind of like, why is this person looking at me like that? And there's this whole. What about on the phone? What about on the phone? I mean, I think
on the phone they don't do a lot of. I guess Americans and other cultures as well, we do a lot of this like active like response, like these responses while we're listening, like oh, and stuff. And so in France they don't do that. So when you start answering like that when they're talking, they think that you're interrupting them, so they stop. When you're like, but you're just trying to show them that you're interested.
Yeah. This whole thing about it's like language in itself, it's just crazy. Just ever since getting on the show, and then I try and listen to the episode and say, well, how was I being a good listener, and how am I talking? What's my cadence? I was just working on that today, just to think about, okay, is it nice to even listen to my voice? Like, I'm sorry to the listeners if I'm having like a day where I'm just full on, you know, like I said before we got online that I was like caffeine, and I listened to it. I'm like, geez, man, like bring it down like 5 notches for anybody that wants to listen to this, that it's like kind of like, oh, okay. You know, for a man, it's like a nice deep voice, and it's kind of like that late night radio voice. And then, you know, I don't know. You can also overanalyze it, but it's just, there's this, I know when I listen to a podcast, the voice makes a big difference to me. Like if the person also is clearer in their thought process, obviously makes a big difference too. But
Yeah, of course. I do think though that now, I don't know, I always think about, you know, today with YouTube and all the different vloggers and YouTubers, there's just so many people out there that speak differently and so many different tastes out there. Even as a listener, maybe I'll listen to someone and be annoyed, but the same person will listen to them and remember their favorite aunt or something, or their favorite cousin, and so they love it. So I think it could go either way.
yeah, you just have to be yourself, and then hope that, you know, if that's something that, you know, and I like I've said multiple times, I just love the opportunity to get to know you. So let's get to know you a little bit. We were just kind of chatting there. Okay, so you came over to Paris. I forgot again already how many years ago. 9 years ago, you said?
Yeah.
9 years ago. Cool. And that was to explore your artistic career, or is that the place to get it started? I have no idea about art. So like Paris is the epicenter. That's where you want to go if you're an up and coming artist. You want to make a name for yourself. Is that where you start, or?
I think historically, it's just like, you know, all the history and the magic of Paris. But of course, there's other big cities. There's New York, there's even Tokyo, there's Milan, Paris, but that's like more for fashion. But I mean, sorry, Milan, Italy, but that's for fashion. And I mean, there's even in Colorado, if I stayed in Denver, they've got a pretty cool art scene. So I think there's like a mix between also the freedom that you get when you move abroad or you move to a new place. And something I was really happy to find when I moved to Paris was this huge appreciation for culture and art. Just all over the city, you'll see advertisements for art in the art museum or exhibitions or events. And it's quite common to talk to people about art. And I wouldn't say that that's been my experience everywhere I've lived. Sometimes people feel very uncomfortable to talk about art. Even some people here might feel uncomfortable depending on what circles you run in. But yeah, so it's been really nice to feel home in that way.
And is this the place that you originally moved into, or is this kind of like the 3rd or 4th studio that you've had, or how? Because it looks like it's ready to go. Like you've got it all set up for, like you said, with your headphones earlier. You can just put the music on, and you can, because I found that so. Personally, just in doing this show, how important that is to be able to just, I'm ready now to be creative. Let's turn the creative thing on, and everything else kind of has to be set up for that you can just show up and be like, I'm in this mood that I'm in now, and I need to there can't be any blockages there, you know?
Yeah, you totally hit the point. Like, I used to live in this really, really small place, not even that long ago. It was, I don't even know in square feet anymore, but it's 18 meters squared.
Yeah.
And I did all of my art in there. And so I would have to take stuff out, and then I would have to put it away. And yeah, it's just to get started would be such a hassle that I think I did less art. But living in a place that's bigger, and also having my own dedicated art studio place, I can just leave everything out. Everything's ready to go. I actually even made a piece of furniture. I had it custom, like I designed it and everything. And it's a piece of furniture that holds my canvases and any paint that I need, and just anything that's totally ready to go. And I call it my inspiration furniture piece. And so I can just like take everything out right away and have it ready to just get on the canvas if I need to really quickly.
Yeah, is that how I mean, I think in any creative endeavor, right? It's just, I've really underestimated that too, just in general, like that, how much that really makes a difference, especially, you know, because this thing, when it's ready, it doesn't give you much warning, right? It's like, let's do this, you know? That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so delicate, as we were saying, like just the idea of, oh, I have to get everything out might be like, okay, let's just watch something instead, or let's go eat something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Food. That's a big one for me. Food distraction. I've been doing this too lately with podcasting. Is just fasting if I can. I mean, if it's a late night podcast, I can't. But I always feel like when you don't have too much food in there, there's also this. It's easier to use the brain. I got to try and use as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I heard once like someone was saying when they're depressed or angry or I don't know, they ask themselves two questions, and one of them is, "Am I hungry?" And it usually is, or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Hangry. My kids call it hangry. When daddy's hangry, then it's time to get him something in his mouth. What's this word? I was looking on your profile here. Videsta?
Oh, vidéaste. It's French.
Okay. Vidéaste. I'm sorry. I'm totally doing the whole like American, like, how do you say that? Vidéaste?
I don't, to be honest with you, I haven't really figured out how to say video artist in French. And I know they have this word vidéaste, and I just thought it was cool. So I think I haven't really changed it since then, since putting it up there.
Yeah, that is an interesting part of your art, like the way that, I mean, you want to just kind of give us a little bit of your backstory, like in your this is so interesting, and I love the way that you wrote it, that you recount the destructive power of secrets, shame, and isolation, and how you used art to reconstruct your identity through the creation of the character Lala Drona. Cool name. So I mean, if you're gonna create one, then obviously it's nice to have a cool one, right? Yeah, in fiction originally, and then eventually in the real world. So can you talk to us about that? Like, that's a very very healthy way, I think, seems to have dealt with the cards that were given to you, right? I mean, this is this life, and
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. It's so I'll start out by, well, I guess like the genesis of my work. I've been an artist forever. Ever My mom said ever since I could hold a marker or pencil anything, I was just creating and drawing and making things all the time. But when I was about let's say 12 to 15 years old, when our bodies are developing and things like that, well, I only had one of my breasts that developed, and the other breast didn't develop at all. And I began to, since I kept the secret and I didn't tell anybody, I started kind of escaping into, I guess, fictional realities and putting myself into my creation and art. And I think it really started to develop in that way, just because I spent so much mental time and energy into it. And eventually, I later on, I created this. I started with a pseudonym of Lala Drona, and Lala Drona in Spanish is La Ladrona, and it means the thief.
Oh.
And yeah, so she's this character that I created. I went to school for creative writing, and I decided to use my pen name as Lala Drona. And eventually, I started creating a blog where I started talking about this character Lala Drona, who had events in the stories that were based on things that happened in my real life, but then I hyperbolized or like fictionalized them to fit this creative universe that I was making. And so in this universe, Lala Drona, she's a artist, but she's kind of a villain artist, and she runs this big art laboratory. And in that art laboratory, they do experiments on muses in order to take their inspiration. So they extract inspiration from the muses, and Lala Drona uses that inspiration on her paintings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a little bit mean. Little.
Yeah, it can get mean. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, it's what I see now. I'm painting a picture in my mind, and the creative writing definitely is a cool mix there between the fact that so you didn't tell anybody because, I mean, right, you're 15 years old or 14 years old. This is a puberty in itself, right? There's that whole I don't want my parents involved anyway. So how long did that go on until it was kind of like, okay, maybe I should talk to my parents about this, because that seemed like that was, or did you talk to your parents? Just, you meant like more outside of the family circle kind of thing, obviously.
No, I didn't tell anybody. Like, I kept it all for myself. I wore big sweaters. I tried to avoid every situation I could in which I had to wear a swimsuit or be around other people, like showing my body. But I was about, I think, 15 years old, where it started to get to that kind of threshold of like, okay, I'm meeting people. I have a boyfriend. Like, I kind of want to start thinking about sharing my body with people, or I don't know, just getting to know people more intimately.
God, I have 2 daughters. I can't hear that.
I'm so sorry about that.
I'm just thinking about that. I'm like, oh God, my daughters are going to go through that at 15. And I'm just thinking like, no, I'm not ready for that at all. But I still got it. I think my oldest one, I think I know how old she is. I have 10 more years. So anyway, sorry.
And also I think it seems to me that in Europe, people start a lot later. So you have that.
Isn't that a funny thing too? That you would think that like, that because they're more open here and everything's more chill about that whole sexual thing, that it would be the other way around, but that you would think they'd be starting sooner, right? But it's actually this typical reverse effect of the more that you say something against it, like don't do that, bad, then obviously it's like it must be something interesting, so I better get started at the age of 14 with everything.
Exactly. It's like they don't have that pressure, like that. There's no rush, so they're just really chill, getting to know people and doing things at their own pace. So it's nice.
It is. It's nice. It's just, my wife is German, so I have this total cool mix, and I've really had to like shed this Puritan way of thinking. Just even when I was dating her at the beginning, and we went to like, you would go to like I don't know how you say them in French, but I don't even know how to say it in English. I just know how to say it in German, like Therme, where you go to like I don't know, like a free swimming area, you know, where it's open showers and everything. Everyone kind of goes there to go swimming in the winter time. It's more of a winter thing. I mean, I'm sure they have that in France too, like these kind of like these. It's kind of like a public pool, but it's putting that in. It's not really like that. It's more, it's got like the sauna area, and do they have that in France at all, or in Paris? Like, kind of like
I haven't really been to many public pools, but I know that they have like hammam. It's like more of a like Middle Eastern or Moroccan, I think, thing. But I don't know if that's the same thing.
The Russians do. The Russians have that too, right? They have like these baths, these open, like these hot steam baths, and then they go. Anyway, in Germany, the culture, the sauna culture and stuff like that. And I just remember going the first time being like, whoa, she's just taking off her clothes in front of everybody. That's not cool. This is my girlfriend. Don't look at her, you know? Like trying to like do all that. And there's so many examples of that. And then finally, after I've been here for 13 years now, it's like, oh, okay. So I think you're right. Like with the girls, the less that you push it into that thing, push it in that, you know, don't do this is bad. It's still though that, you know, anyway, I'm totally rambling. See, I'm sorry.
It's okay. These are interesting topics too, but it's true. At 15 years old, that's about around when I told my mom, and she was actually very shocked that she didn't know. She felt really horrible that she didn't know, because we're very close. Like, she's a very close mother, and so she just kind of felt really bad for not knowing, but she also had always respected my privacy and respected me as like a person, and like, oh, I just thought that you were, you know, very conservative, you know, and whatever. But yeah, and so eventually she talked to the doctors, and she told them, like, or she asked me first, what do you want to do about this? Do you want to get a breast implant? And I told her, yeah, I did. And so she talked to the doctors, and yeah, I had surgery at 16 years old to get a breast implant so that both sides would match in volume.
Yeah. It's such a tender age, right? Gosh. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, 16-year-old girls are always a little bit more ahead of the 16-year-old guys, I feel like, but still, just having to imagine going through that with one of my daughters would be, yeah, definitely, yeah. You're exploring that whole thing, and then this whole world that you created didn't disappear, right? I mean, this is cool.
No.
You kept it going. Obviously, that's why we're having this conversation. Like it went over, and you brought it in. You kept it going. This whole imaginary, this creation that you made. You kept feeding it throughout the years.
Yeah, definitely. Because I still think that even with the breast implant, I didn't feel, let's say I always felt weird, of course, like when you have a big, for me, I always call it a big piece of Tupperware. Like it's not comfortable at all, especially, I don't know if it's worse even if you just have like one, but it was just not cool at all. And, but I mean, it was fine. I was happy to have had the means and the way to, to fix that. And live a somewhat quote unquote normal life with that. But yeah, I did have the choice last February to have it, because after 10 years, you need to have it replaced more or less, if because of toxicity, it could be really dangerous for your body. And I didn't want to live this life of going through a cycle of every 10 years, I have to find a doctor, I have to save up money, I have to do this surgery for something that, I don't know, they're just boobs, and so I just,
it's so funny just to talk to you about your boobs the whole time. So I have to just
I know. I forget because for me, it's so normal at this point. I'm like, yeah.
That's also really cool that you're able to just so openly talk about this too. That's a whole nother point that you're so open about it. Right. And in a very positive way that I'm sure just helps so many other people that don't want to talk about it, but that at least can have someone that's turned it into such a positive thing in their life,
Yeah, definitely. And for me, it's like it's like a knee or something, like it's just a body part, but yeah, I had it removed. So like now I'm without it and I'm healthy and
I could see that just from a practical. I mean, I'm a guy, right? I don't even like to be at a haircut for longer than 10 minutes. Like I can imagine like this whole planning every 10 years, and then you're thinking about it, and God, it's just this whole thing, and you want to make, okay, that surgeon, I'm search out a surgeon, and then is it an insurance thing or is it not an insurance thing? It's just like, okay, I'm just gonna make it easy on there. It's cool that you found the peace with it in that sense, right? And said, I am who I am, and
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think my biggest reason for it was just I wanted to dedicate my entire life to my art. And I feel like all of the breast implant stuff and the medical stuff is just always in the way. And it's never letting me put my art first. And so I think now I can finally, go art first. And it's just beginning, I guess, this new chapter of my life.
Yeah. And so you wanted to create a documentary, I read on your website, about this entire process too, right? So you want to kind of recreate or retell the story in a very structured documentary. How do you want to kind of ask, like, am I allowed? Is it like secret project, or are you going to go like on YouTube, or how do you want to do that?
So as far as, I've been working with a filmmaker, and so, it's just we're still, I think, getting all the footage and everything still, because I do have one more surgery to be finished with everything. And then after that surgery, we'll have all the footage of everything, and we'll be able to put it together. I haven't really figured out distribution yet or how I'm going to do that. But yeah, I'm just working on the administrative part of it a little bit. And yeah, I'm very excited about it though. He was inside the operating room filming my surgery. Like, yeah.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
Pretty intense.
Pretty intense. Were you fully under? Or were you like half, like, like were you fully under what do you say it, in sleep mode, or were you like halfway there? I don't know how, it depends on how, sometimes depending on the surgery or how invasive it is, right? They don't put you fully under.
Yeah, I was under general anesthesia.
Yeah.
And they did a bunch of stuff under there. I actually saw some of the footage. I was really afraid of seeing it. I was like, I don't want to see that. That sounds disgusting. Like, sounds like a butcher or something. Really disgusting. So, but anyways, I did see it, and the filmmaker was very, I don't know, very tactful, it was mostly like the doctor's backs, and like sometimes you'd see my face, but it wasn't like right in.
It wasn't like the ER movie, the TV show where it is like, all right, she needs suction here or whatever, it's like, come on. I watched. I remember watching my knee surgery and just watching like the orthoscopic camera, you know, because they didn't like open it up, and even that, like I was sitting there with my knee, and I'm just going, no wonder I'm in so much pain. Like they don't, you know, when you're under, it was just like they're just going for it, right? Like he's just going with the thing, and I was just like sitting there, like, okay, now I know why it feels like there's like 1,000 pounds on my knee right now, you know.
Oh, wow. And you were awake? You watched it the whole time?
No, I watched it afterwards. They gave me the video, and you didn't really know what was. They just went into your knee. You know, I mean, with you, it's like, okay, it's not orthoscopic, right? So it's like, and to watch that, yeah, I could imagine that must have been tricky to think, do I want to watch that? Because once you watch it, you can't really unwatch it, right? It's once you make that
exactly. And I decided like, oh well, we're making this documentary. I have to watch it sometime, and it was fine. It really wasn't. It's way more disgusting on movies, I think.
Right? Yeah. They just make it more gory in the movie so that, yeah, true that. What about this thing that's the way that you talk about, it is exactly the way that you put it at the beginning. Like you have this Tupperware and this transition between like reality and this virtual reality. That was a really interesting aspect that you also bring in your art. Like this canvas behind you or this painting behind you, or I guess you would call it a piece if I'm properly talking about artwork. This is called The Void, right?
Yeah, so I have the void behind me, but I'll tell you a little bit about the background of how I got to the void.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like what you're saying, this interest of mine of within my art, from the virtual to the real, or from the synthetic to the real, that was inspired by having this breast implant. And so since I had a synthetic breast or a breast implant and then a natural breast on the other side, I was constantly living between this idea of the virtual, or like a simulation, like this idea of simulating of what a normal female body should look like, or if you want to say it in that way, and then the other natural side. So I always had this comparison between the two, and it also, I think, just having my mind concentrated on or focused on that, and then also living in this online world where it's we have Facebook, we have all the different social media, and I was looking at how those, like, social media will put our life on there, and then whatever is on there will also influence our real life. So it's, that whole, like, does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? And I just really liked these topics, and it brought me just to this topic of the transitions between the virtual and the real, and what happens there.
Yeah. And I think so many people, including myself, like you don't really realize that that it's a virtual world. Sometimes you think that's like, it just catches you up and you think this is the reality. I'm scrolling on my phone, and this is, I mean, everyone knows it when you talk about it, that you only see the best pictures of people on vacation on Instagram or whatever, but it's more sinister than that, because the things, like, sometimes I don't see, I have a good friend and he'll post something that Instagram just doesn't show it to me. Like, I don't see his posts, even though I'm his friend, and I should basically, like, back in the old algorithm of Facebook back in the day, like, everything that my friends posted, I saw exactly what but now it's like, no, I'm just going to rather show him, like, how to make his podcast, like, other people that are selling podcast marketing so that I can make my podcast big or something like that. It's like, well, it's not what I'm here for, yeah. And it's
definitely,
yeah. But for you, like, this it came down to, so the void is something different, right? Like, the void is a different idea, right? So you have the virtual and the reality on one end, and then you how did you get to that? How did you come up with this idea? Because this is just it's also very, I mean, you have different versions of it on your Instagram. I wanted to kind of show your Instagram account eventually, but we can do that later on. I just please talk to me about how you came up with this idea.
Yeah, so I started thinking about virtual world and things like that, and I also have my fictional worlds with my blog and Lala Drona, and I started realizing, like, okay, you know what? These are just kind of alternate realities. It's not necessarily just the virtual or the digital or things like that. And so with that said, after I had my implant removed, I actually, it was the first time in 17 years, because I had it for 17 years, that I was confronting that lack, or this void, I guess, that I had, that I had been covering for so long, that makes me. And I think instead of just trying to be like, oh, okay, no, that's fine, just have the surgery and move on, I decided, just even for psychological reasons and everything, I just wanted to really stare at this void and start painting it and get closer and closer to it. And so in my paintings, I have a void, and then I'm getting, in every painting that I do, I get closer to it until finally I'm going to get to the other side of it. So I'll be inside the void, and then I'll start to paint from, like, the images that I'll paint will be inside the void.
Oh, wow. It's not only therapeutic in a sense, but it's like you are documenting through art the process of like what's going on in your mind. It's that's cool. I try and do that just with meditation or something like that. You try and just kind of uncover, like, okay, how do I feel about that, or why am I triggered on that? And there's just, there's so many levels. There's just so many things, and the way that you put that. So you're gonna go step by step, like you're facing it to the point. So did you just like take off your shirt and just stare at like literally? Did you take pictures of yourself and then put it next to your paintings? Is that how did you do that?
So I mean, that's a good idea, because I did do that for another series where it's called the breast series. Is when I finally came out with my secret. I was 24 years old, and I told everyone about my unilateral breast agenesis in the form of an exhibition and all that stuff. Yeah. And I painted myself and then shared my story, and other people shared their stories. It was really beautiful. But this time I decided I didn't have to be on my body this time. I did throughout the process take documentation and make different things, make different art videos using my current body and the body after the surgery, even with the wounds and everything.
Right.
But for this series of paintings, I decided to really just get into the void, because and not inspired necessarily by my body, but just the emptiness and kind of a hole, because I just believe that all of us do have voids, whatever they are. We might have multiple, and yeah, I think it's interesting to just look inside, and they don't necessarily have to be negative, because I think they're also great sources of inspiration.
Yeah. And just saying that, just the word, the void, in its sense, it's like, well, I'm afraid of it because I'm afraid of not like this nothingness, or touching on something that might, invoke an emotional response, or, it's, I've kind of been like going back and forth in my mind, like, do I want to do a high dosage of psilocybin? Mm-hmm. I've been thinking about that, and I've heard about it, and I'm like, okay, you don't really know if you're ready for that or not, but it's just kind of, I've heard about it. Like, there's this sense of you have to kind of, you can't close like every door that comes up, you have to open, and you can't close the doors, because as soon as you do that, then you can't pump the brakes on a semi truck going down a snowy mountain. That's kind of like the way that McKenna had talked about it, and I can thinking like this is something that I can see why you might want to just do it in like a therapeutic situation where you have like actual doctor sitting next to you, like, okay, I'm going to help you, and if you're starting to go off in this edge, in this this weird way, then I can bring you back, or. But you're just doing it. You're doing it this with I wonder just what your mind is like when you go to bed at night. Like what's going through your mind. Like tomorrow when I get back up, I'm gonna go back into the void, and it just must be such a. I don't know how it's something that's like nothing there. I know what you mean, but at the same time, there's so many other things that must come up, right? When you're exploring your own. Yeah, your own. It's not just your body, like you said. It's like like we all have that somewhere deep down. We all have something that we're afraid to uncover, and we just forget about it. And I think those are the things that end up controlling us. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like to me. Like the things that we try and block away. Those are the ones that are running our lives, even though we're not aware of them.
Yeah, and they also, I think they could probably hold portals to like really beautiful things too that we're not looking at because we're letting the void, or I mean maybe something negative be in the driver's seat, and instead of just putting ourselves in the driver's seat. Um, and and yeah, I think when I get up in the morning, I it's been a process too, just doing this whole project as well, even for me, just learning a lot of things. I've also I'm somebody where I always have to have kind of a plan before I paint. And the spontaneous moment for me is sketching.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll kind of put that sketch on the painting and start painting it, or on the canvas and start painting it. And so I'm very used to structure and things like that, and kind of censoring my ideas, or not censoring, but it could be just, I guess, editing my ideas before I put them out. And I think I've realized with the void that I can't do that. There's this idea that I always want everything to kind of flow, and I want this painting to flow into the next one, and I want it to make sense. But I think that's something about the void, is that it's everything and it's nothing. And I kind of just have to let anything come out onto it and not say, well, this doesn't make sense sequentially, or anything like that. So it's a meditative process in that way too, of not, when you're meditating, you're not supposed to stop yourself from thinking about something. You're supposed to let it continue, let the thoughts flow, and just watch them, and then return to your meditation. Right. I think it's similar in that way.
Yeah, it's like the contraction itself is the problem, right? It's like if you can just say, okay, I'm thinking, and I'm not going to judge myself so harshly just because I'm thinking again, and when I'm not supposed to be thinking right now. And then I was listening to that. That was my meditation last night. He was just like, and now you're thinking about that you're thinking, and so just make the faster that you catch that, then it's good, right? Because then it's like, okay, I'm doing that thing again. Like, let's just come back to. It's so tricky though. It's so weird the way our brains work. And I ask myself, like, if it's so amazing to be enlightened, and we all are enlightened, and we block ourselves from the day, from some point on, or society blocks us from this true self that we really are. And it's so hard to find, like, why make it so hard? I don't get it. Like, that. What's the game? The joke's on us, right? Like,
I think some of it is also these like structures that we built around ourselves in society, and like these ways of thinking and these beliefs that we have and things like that. Even just, I read something, I can't remember right now the resource, but I read something recently. They've been doing more studies, of course, of, that higher consciousness level of thinking and just consciousness in general. And they're looking at how maybe the reason that we can't figure out like the consciousness while looking at brains and looking at bodies and things like that is because maybe we're tuning into something outside of our body. And I think that is wild. And I actually would relate to that so much more. And even thinking about the void and relating to our thoughts, like maybe our thoughts in this other place isn't necessarily inside our head, but it's like we have the tools within our brain to be able to connect to that, I guess, that space where we all kind of tune into, like a channel.
Yeah. And it feels like it's if you're in a good place, it feels like, I kind of was talking to my wife about this the other day. It felt like this stream of whatever it is, this energy, whatever. And it feels like my finger's in there, and I'm kind of like, I'm able to like dip my finger in the stream. And it'd be nice if I could just dunk my whole head in there, but sometimes it is like, sometimes my whole hand is in there, and I feel like I'm really, and you can tell, but the minute that I notice it, it's like, oh shit, I ruined it,
Oh.
I don't know, but it's, I think the pursuit itself is just something that you have to enjoy eventually, because it's going to be, I think even for the most experienced meditator, they always tend to have a little bit of humor about that, especially like if you've been to a more centered place, or you've been mentally there before, and then something kind of life just happens, and there's a thing that comes and it throws you off, and just to kind of also not to push against that either. Just like, okay, that also not, and this is just what it is right now. Yeah,
definitely. It's just like accepting that, okay, well, that's the journey. That's how this specific session was supposed to go, or, for whatever reason.
Yeah, Nah, it's cool though, and just it's very alluring just looking at it because the what now is that a I don't know. I guess am I supposed to ask what that is, or am I supposed to figure it out, right?
I mean, it's whatever your relationship is to the art piece.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm just yeah, exactly. I guess I should just keep it to myself then.
Oh, no, you can. You can definitely. I love to hear people's interpretation. It's just I feel like there's no correct interpretation. I can tell you what my intentions were, but I'm always happy to hear what other people what they see or what they think.
Well, I don't know if I want to admit it, but I feel like I'm looking, like left and right would be. I feel like I'm looking right at the center of your chest. That's what I see. But like it's, or either it was a blanket for me or it's a piece of clothing, because the way that it's folding like that. That's just my initial thing. And then obviously looking at this black hole, it reminds me of the movie Intergalactic a little bit. Like they did a really good job on creating this black hole, and the way that the did you ever watch that movie? It was with Matthew. Interstellar.
Oh, Interstellar, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I remember listening to the guys, the astronomer that actually worked with the CG group that created a whole presentation. I think he did a tour even of the CG of this black star or this black hole that they created in that movie. That's probably for me, like, as a little, geeking out on these sci-fi movies, it was the best looking black hole I've ever seen in a movie. It was fantastic. And it kind of reminds me of that because there was like the outside, the light bends around it, right? And it can't go, a light can't escape, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have this kind of just this energy field. It's very alluring somehow. I feel like you could just stare at it, for a while. I'm sure you've stared at it enough in your time, but
no, but like that's great to hear that you feel like you can stare at it, because I think that's one of my intentions with art. I've always, like, I started, in my early 20s, I just used, or actually most of my life, I used bright colors like a lot all the time. And I had a curator tell me, why do you use bright colors? And I said, I don't know, I like them. And she said, yeah, well, also bright colors make it difficult to look at anything for very long. So if you want someone to look at something for a long time, like for example, I had a lot of imagery and a lot of things going on. And so she said, well, if you use more, I guess, muted colors or monochrome, then it'll invite people to stay a little bit longer and really see all those little images and things that you're trying to show. So yeah, I've been, it's a lot of work trying to not fill up the entire canvas, because yeah, negative space is also space. But anyways, so yeah, for a long time after I had been using all the bright colors, I decided to change to gray, and I liked it so much that I had sort of, I don't know, I don't want to sound too pretentious or anything, but I had kind of a gray period. And so
we are talking about art. It's in that sense. In this context, you can say I had a gray period. Nice.
Yeah, I had a gray period. So yeah, I only did gray paintings. And so when I started this Void series, I decided to pull away the gray. And so that's what you see, that kind of, there's it's like almost like a material or tissue, like cloth or cloth that you're pulling away, and it's a grayscale.
Got it.
And then under it we have the void, and then it's difficult to see from where you are now, but the void, it has a dark green background on this one, and then there's a hole, and a hole into, we don't know what's on the other side, the hole of space, vacuum of space, or everything and nothing, all that stuff.
How do you feel like, you don't have to give me exactly kilometers, but how close are we getting? How close are you getting to actually getting in there and looking around on the other side?
I am already in.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just, like, you can't see it in this painting. I have bigger ones. I mean, I've closer.
I've been there. I've been to the void and back, so.
I'm still in the void.
Yeah. Right on. So we're basically in the void right now. Okay, got it.
Yeah, partly. I'm zooming from inside.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I get it now with the gray. So that's like, this is you saying, okay, my gray phase is now, I'm pulling the gray away and coming, and you're still, but you're keeping the darker color. So it's something about darker colors. They do have that. It's just more, I don't know how to say it. I feel like I know I can always just be making my own life. Like I'm about ready to tear this whole studio apart because I picked purple, and it's just killing me. It's like it's not, I can't even not look at it anymore. You know, I don't know why. I think I just was looking at the material for the sound, and it was like the best material, and I didn't care what color it was. But now I'm like, I just have to make it all black in here or something. You know, just the
yeah, that's rough.
Isn't it purple? I heard there's like a German phrase. Isn't there a German phrase that purple is like the last color that you ever pick or something like that? I don't know. What do they say? What's the artist thing about purple? Bad color, just in general?
No, I don't know. I think it's probably the rarest favorite color of people, I guess. But it is. I think historically, isn't it royalty? Like, so it's kind of great, purple.
True. With gold, kind of, huh? Like purple and gold a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just know that I think black would have been better. I think I'm gonna have to do everything in black, just kind of, so that it's about us, right? It's about this conversation. It's not about the background, really. You know. I mean, of course, the bear is what do you think about the bear?
I like the bear. I feel like you're being protected. He's a friendly bear. It looks like it doesn't look like he's angry at all.
Yeah.
He also looks curious.
Yeah, he's got these eyes, huh? I love his eyes. He's got this look.
Is that a painting? It's
cool. I can't even really read the artist. I think it's Sylvia Huddit. She wrote it on the bottom. I can't really. I think that's how you spell it. I never actually looked it up. I never looked up the artist. It's so, I feel bad like talking to you because it's like I'm so not the artist person. I saw the bear and I just bought it online. You know.
Yeah, it's a cool bear, and don't even worry. I feel like there's no. I think in the end, I just feel like there was art. Okay, yeah, we have all this industry. We have, we had agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, technology. But the thing is there has always been, humans have gone without technology, but they've never gone without art. So, I mean, we think about, there's like a certain way to speak about art, or there's a certain. But in the end, it's one of the most human things. So it's really just whatever somebody is saying about the art is valid, I think.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it, right? It's free to interpretation. If that's, and if it's like the same thing, like if you're chewing gum while you're going wine tasting, then that's just your taste. That's what you want, That's how you want to drink your wine, with gum in your mouth, then, that's fine, man. Then I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely, it could work too. I don't want to say that because here in France they might hunt me down, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's also cool what you said about the fact that it's just the community is just so supportive, and the city itself is so supportive, and so you're able to do these expositions or have art. Is that what it's called? And just to display your artwork in a nice show. Is there something like that coming up, or do you have any? I don't know if Corona's playing games on that.
Yeah, for a long time, Corona was playing games on that, and then I kind of got into this, I guess, this zone of, okay, you know what, I just want to concentrate on creating. But yeah, right now I'm preparing my next exhibition, just painting and getting all of that done first, and then of course all the rest of the fun stuff, like finding the gallery or venue, or all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so for right now the projects are I'm also writing a podcast too, like a fiction podcast.
That's a cool idea. So you're gonna go into this. Yeah, that's a cool idea. Like a limited series podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's a cool idea.
And it's all going to take place in that fictional universe, and yeah.
If you need like a guy that's screaming or something on the train because he's cutting off his legs or whatever, because he's just let me know. I'll give you a couple voiceovers. Wah!
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I might take you up on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Just to write it out, kind of like a book on tape, right? Like how I'm dating myself there, but just like an audio book, but then releasing it as a podcast. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, and I actually want it to be more of like a kind of audio fiction or audio theater. So it's like, for example, I don't know if you know Girl in Space, but it's kind of an audio fiction, but she's like talking on a transmission, like, hey, I don't know if anyone's gonna hear this, but if you're hearing this, it's kind of like that vibe.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got just from reading that blog post too. I was like, well, okay, wait, all right, this is a fake story. She's just a story. It's fiction here, and that's that. Keeping on that point, I remember that what was that one that movie? It was a terrible movie from Tom Cruise, but I think they released it when was it Body Snatchers or what was that? Where they released it was a radio program before TV.
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds. Yeah, exactly. Body Snatchers. Yeah, War of the Worlds. Exactly. And that was that was such a cool idea and people, they had to literally like afterwards come on and say it was all fake because it was so realistically produced, and people thought that
yeah. That was so wild. I think it's like people, they tuned in at like halfway through or something, so they really thought that it was a mission about aliens that had come to Earth.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of just listening to something too, because you can dive into it. I've even had a podcast where we've just turned off the video, and I feel like the conversation actually was a little bit more improved because I was able to like sit here and I'm looking at you and I'm looking at the thing, and these are all good things for me, but in a sense, like it maybe takes away from our minds, like literally getting on the same level, right? Because when you just close your eyes and you talk to somebody, it's like sitting on the phone. How many hours could you sit there and talk with your girlfriend on the phone? As opposed to like doing a video conversation with them where there's stuff going on and you just have I think the brain just goes into a different place somehow,
It definitely does. I think so too. I think it has to be different parts of the brain or something, because and even just that we're so static when we're in front of the camera, or I guess we're thinking about other things. We're like, okay, I'm in presentation mode as well. So
there's a layer there. No matter, I mean, it would be you have to admit that there's something that your brain it's doing more things than if you just closed your eyes. And that was with this woman with Hema Vyas, and she was all about the heart. And it was so interesting, and it was like we both just agreed on it. We're like, "Do you want to just turn off the camera?" She's like, "Yeah, let's do that." And I was like, "Oh wow!" And when I listened back to the conversation, I'm like, "Yeah, I was much more in tune with even my own thoughts and feelings." I mean, we were talking about the heart. That probably helped too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can see how that could definitely make things. The communication on a different level. I feel like I don't know if it's come back since COVID or what, but just talking to friends on the phone as well, and instead of always having to see them, has been, I think, a nice addition to the communication, at least around my friends. It's been nice.
Did you always try and get back once a year to the family? Or that's how I always tried to with like see my parents once a year, and since obviously COVID's been kind of crazy on that.
Yeah, I would go like once a year, once every 2 years. Either I'd fly my mother out here, or I would go visit Colorado. And now, it's been a few years. I think it's been a while, and I think it's hard. It's hard, but at the same time, since I've been here for 8 or 9 years, I can't remember now, but it's been. I think I feel more at home here anyway. So the only reason to go back at this point is to see family or friends, but it's not to feel home, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. At the beginning, I was like, I would go back home, and then I'd be like depressed when I came back here. I'd be here for like 2 weeks afterwards, and Franzi would just leave me alone. She's like, oh, he's just mourning because that attachment was still raw. And now I'm the same way. Like, I go there because I want to see my family, but like this is my home for sure. It took. I was surprised how long that actually took though. Like I thought it would just be like boom, no big deal, and it took probably, I'd say like 5 years, really, until I was like not truly. I could honestly say with like out any doubt in my mind that I wasn't homesick or whatever,
Yeah. It does take a while. And I think at least for me, it came in different waves as well. Like I think I was here for the first 2 years, 3 years, and I was I was more homesick, but then, after 4 years, I was less, and then 5 years more again, and then 6, and it kind of went back and forth. And then, yeah, eventually, I think after probably 7 years of being out,
Crazy.
I was home in Paris.
Yeah, that's cool. It's interesting, interesting way to, to try and live life, and it definitely helps with growth. I think with this whole analyzation and of. I remember just being in rooms and no one understood me, and I just was thinking everyone was talking about me, but it's not possible.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. I think that's everybody's first intuition for some reason. I mean, and it's sad because in a way it's like, oh, I guess the world revolves around us or something, but I definitely felt the same way. And I know even in the US, I'll have a lot of friends I notice who, at least growing up, I remember if someone were speaking another language, they thought that they only spoke another language if they were talking crap, about other people. It's like,
Yeah.
I think it's just easier for them to speak in another language sometimes to each other.
Yeah. It's just that that being bilingual, or I don't know. Well, do you also speak Portuguese or Spanish or something? Or
Yeah, I speak Spanish and some Portuguese, but yeah, Spanish, French, Portuguese.
yeah, that was always my goal. And like when I met Franzi, I was like, okay, we're gonna move to Spain. Like Germany is just like a stop for us, just to like hit to Europe first, and then we're gonna move to Spain, and we're gonna, or somewhere down there. I just feel like even when we were there, like I feel like the language itself just has more of a just this romantic language. These Germanic languages, English and German, are actually very close in that sense. It's just like I just did a podcast in German with our mayor here in our little village that we live in, and gosh, even after 13 years, it's just like find that flow, and how is it for you in French? It's how do you like, you must have do you have a positive relation? Eventually you have to have a positive relationship with the language, right? You have to enjoy it. Otherwise you're just not going to be able to speak it really in a good way. But
Yeah, it's true. And I think I still get like that social anxiety. Like I'm fluent in French now. Of course, I don't speak it perfectly, but I think I still get that social anxiety. For example, if I go to an event or a party with all French people, but then while I'm there, it's always great. And I feel really proud of myself. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize how, and everybody's really nice too. They always say, wow, your French is so good. You speak French so well. And even though I think I'll always feel like they're just being nice, but
I do
but
that.
I know
That's so true.
yeah, I know I've definitely improved, and I can obviously, I guess I obviously do well if I'm able to go to parties and have a great time. So, yeah, I think it was the hardest language for me to learn just because of the pronunciation. But yeah, I do have a really good relationship with it now. But I remember when I first started speaking French, it just felt like my mouth was really full all the time, like because there's a lot of air. I don't know.
Yeah. And the social anxiety thing is totally true. Like I feel that even now, like if I know all of a sudden everyone's like, you get that feeling like everyone's looking at you, and it's like, okay, now all of a sudden, why does my German have to suck right now? Like it's totally good when I'm just in the flow and having a good time, and I don't really I'm not thinking about it. But then if you like, when people like look at you, especially because of the accent or whatever, then it's like, oh, and now it just gets worse right when it needs to be the best, or when I meet somebody new for the first time, and it's like, why? That's right when you want to make that good impression, right? When you meet someone new for the first time, you want to kind of be on your game so they get that impression in the first 3 seconds or whatever. And I just be like putting my foot in my mouth and just say something that's like, no, that's not what I meant, But
yeah, especially when you talk about anything that's even just a little bit deeper than really, I guess, really concrete things like what you do during the day or what your job is, et cetera, et cetera. But like if you're talking about philosophy or if you're talking about art and you're trying to do it in the foreign language, sometimes it can be really, really hard. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to learn French a lot, like to improve my French, was to be able to explain my art in the other language. But I think it's when I talk about like my emotions, it's like it's finished. I can't, for some reason, I can't do it in French. It's really hard.
Totally. I actually was listening to a podcast about that the other day or something. I know because I think we did it once when we were doing a podcast. We like looked at the English looking at a second language and how it emotionally, because you learn that language later on in life, you don't have these emotions like you do in your mother language. Growing up as a child, like you can't reproduce all of these memories and all of these emotions that come along with learning the language from baby on. And so it's like, well, here I moved here when I was 25. So it's like that was like the cut. So now I get to start a new emotional thing. So I'm actually like less emotional. I became less emotional as a person. Weirdly enough, that could also be because like my wife's not such an emotional person maybe, and she kind of needed to cut that off of me because I was just like, depressed all the time, going back and forth. So she's just like, shut up, go to bed, and I had to kind of just get my shit together. It might have been a good thing, but at the same time, it's like also that's at the same time of learning a new language. So that's like this personality in this language is like more cut and dry, kind of like cries less. I used to cry more, Mm-hmm. I would even get like teary-eyed during a movie and stuff like that. Can't think of the last time that happened to me.
Wow.
So it's sad kind of when I say it out loud. I'm like, well, I need to get back in touch with that, because I am an emotional guy, but that definitely has to do with the language that when you're trying to talk about the way you feel about stuff and you bring it up and then even to tell a story about back in the day and then bring it into German, it kind of just it gets lost in translation a little bit, the feeling of it. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it could be like what you're saying, could be a cultural difference too, as far as, the expression of emotions. I'm not really sure. I'm not familiar enough with the German culture. But I guess stereotypically it seems a little colder in that way. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know plenty of French people, and I would not even call them cold people. Like they're very warm, very friendly. But yeah, so I think that there's a lot to that, what you're saying. And I guess as far as French, if I'm going to just connect it to my experience with French, I don't know if there's, at least emotionally, I don't know if there's a difference. I think that at least men they can express their emotions or talk about those sort of things a little bit more here. Maybe not, but it feels like it. I think just because they're so used to talking about philosophy and like, conversations and things like that.
Yeah. Now we were, like I said, we were just in France, and there's so many of these stereotypes. I love that when I go to a new country and you have all these stereotypes built in, and I knew it. Like Franzi and I, because I've done that here in Germany and seen that you can't just say that all 85 million Germans are a certain way, or you can't say all 330 million Americans are a certain way. But I get that every day when I reach someone new and they're like, yeah, so you guys are all like that, I'm like, or all Americans are like me now. Like I do something silly or I'm just a human. And I just do like, and I'm like the representative for 330 million people in this small little village, But when we went down to I don't know, we got through Paris. I don't even really know where we went because it was just like a whirlwind of vacation. But everybody was nice. Like you always hear these things like, oh yeah, French people and they don't like Americans and speaking it, blah blah blah. Totally not even once did I get that. We had like the coolest server at the last night that we were there with my parents at this little restaurant, and he was like making jokes. At first he made fun of all the French things first, which is great. It's a great delivery because then it opens the door for him to make fun of Americans afterwards. Because then we're like, okay, cool. So I order a burger and I'm in Paris, or no, I wasn't in Paris, but I think we were in, how do you say it? Nantes?
Yeah. Nantes. Yeah.
Nantes. Yeah. It was awesome. Cool little place. We were like in the city center, or it felt like this square or this plaza where they had the actual like a women's skating team, like this roller derby team, and they were practicing like right next to where we were sitting. It was so cool, and the sun was setting. It was amazing, and God, just had the greatest experience. Didn't have one negative experience with someone, and always just like parlez-vous English, and that was it. And they're like, yeah, we're good, let's do it. And everyone's like, no one speaks English, you have to learn French, blah blah blah. It's like not even the case. I don't know if in Paris maybe it's a little bit worse because there's just there's just I've always heard there's just more. Well, there's more tourism, and so maybe the locals are just annoyed with tourism. But that's in every single touristic location in the world, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that it's probably a little bit different in France, but it's more in a Paris. Like I think the serve it's more the servers like at a restaurant are usually kind of rude with you or um I don't know. It's more of the like customer service type of stuff that isn't
Mm,
because they get paid a full wage. So they don't get paid on tips
exactly.
and
They don't have
so
to
it's
be not. It's not. And this honestly, this
yeah,
whole American thing. Sometimes like this super nice person that's like your best buddy. It's like I've got to the point where I'm
yeah,
like that annoys me too. You know, like at least they give it to you straight. It's like, yeah, man, you got your food, you got your drink. If you're not
yeah.
thirsty, you're not hungry, then what else you want from me? You know?
Yeah, and I also think that there is this it's like a certain way of acting here. It's almost like they respect you if you're mean back to them. And I
Okay.
didn't I
Yeah.
didn't realize that for the longest time. And then I had a server be rude with me, and then I would be rude back with them. And then it was like all of a sudden we were friends. I was like, ew, that's kind of weird and kind of gross. I don't know why. It just feels really strange that
Yeah.
I don't know that it's like a way of communicating that is not my style necessarily, but now I know that if someone's rude with you, they respect you when you're rude back with them. It doesn't necessarily accelerate it, or is that right? Accelerate? Yeah,
I get what you mean.
I
Like
don't know. Yeah,
you would think that'd be counterproductive to like have that type of conversation. Like first off, we need to be mean to each other, and now we're best friends. But that's such a cultural thing, and especially what you said at the beginning with the faces. I've never heard that
yeah.
before. That's crazy.
And there's another thing too, where with which was really difficult is like with French people, they don't say things directly like Americans will, and probably I don't know Germans, I'm guessing as well.
Mm.
You can tell me if that's not right, but like for example, if they, I don't know, let's say that you're eating like you're eating your full plate of food,
Mm.
um, they might say something like, oh, like are your mashed potatoes good? And you're like, yeah, they're good. And that's it. Like, cause that's what we think that they're asking, but really they're asking like for you to offer for them to have a taste. Like
Ah.
it's like on a whole other nuanced level. It's like it's
Ah.
very, yeah. And
So
so there's so many miscommunications for me.
that's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, like I thought maybe it'd be like, what am I eating too much? Like, am I getting fat? Am I fat? You know, so it's like this sarcastic way of talking. Like every question they ask is actually like meant to be has a different meaning instead of just being a straightforward question.
It's like that too. Yeah,
God.
for sure, all the time, all
Yeah,
the time.
for sure, all the time
Yeah,
sarcastic. Nice.
yeah. I forgot there was a moment like that where I had a friend where he said that he was the first one to go get the food at a banquet or something. And then someone was like, "Oh, are you sure you should be eating that?" Like making like this kind of motion as if he was fat or something. Like, I don't know.
Like maybe you should
Just
just kind of
brings
get to the end of the line where there's not so much left over, so you don't eat as much. You know, like
yeah. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
totally definitely have to get. Especially like I remember that was the same thing in Germany too when I first got here. It was like, oh, I have to get used to this whole customer service thing for sure. But
Mhm.
I now I've switched it, and now I'm back. I'm like so German now that like the happy, polite, fake Americans kind of annoy me too. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's
Same.
yeah, just keep it in the middle. Just keep it in the middle. You know, just be yourself. You know, and if you want to, and it's kind of cool it really is kind of cool to be able to take like an asshole remark and kind of give it back, and then all of a sudden we're buddies. That sounds actually kind of more cool than pretending that you're my best friend and then not knowing who I am the next day. You know, that's annoying.
Yeah.
That's more annoying. It's like I'd rather
Yeah.
someone talk shit to me and then I have to counter it, and it feels like okay, now we're on that level. You know, that sounds I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think it's like I always think of it as like Americans are friends first and enemies later. And
Right.
then at least in France, it's almost like they're enemies first and friends later, even
Yeah.
though they're not enemies. It's just they're not friends first.
Yeah, like the whole friendship thing too. Like when I have a German friend, I know that guy, it's my friend for life because I earned
Mhm.
that friendship. Like it took me, even with the best friends of my wife, like they all accepted me at the beginning. You know, obviously it's like okay, she's our best friend, so you're her boyfriend. Like we accept you. You're not an asshole. You know, you're nice enough. And so we're going to ask you about whatever current president is,
I know.
Right?
It's always the topic. Yeah.
What current president is being an asshole at the, like, okay, I get it. But you've been there for how many administrations, 2 or 3? We had Obama going there for a good 8 years. That was nice.
Yeah, it was cool. It was nice. It was a little less heavy. It was a little lighter for a few years, but I still get, the comment always is, I go to a bar and they're like, oh yeah, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from the United States. And they go, oh, that's okay. Not all of us are perfect.
Yeah, that's how it starts. You just get used to that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see about what happens there in their home country. It seems like they're having quite the hard run at it right now.
Yeah. Sounds like the whole world right now is kind of it's like on fire, literally, and
right?
figuratively.
I mean, it doesn't matter where you look, huh? It seems like these conversations are nice because it's kind of like a break from that. And I don't know how much TV you watch and stuff. I don't watch any, but that's just to keep sane, really, because there's just too much crap going on.
Yeah, and I think I watch, which probably isn't great either, but I'll watch stuff on YouTube. Like it'll be like French news on YouTube or something like that. And then I watch some. I don't. Is this a good channel? But it's like DW, the German one.
DW.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Eric says, yeah, it's a good one. It's a documentary channel.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Documentaries are always good. They're always trying to stay neutral, right? Yeah. I mean, it is though. It's wild. I guess it's nice though that you can just, keep on your thing. You're touching people. You touched me with your art. I'm another one. We follow each other on Instagram. I'll put that in the show notes and stuff for anybody that's interested to check out all of your work. I really appreciate the way that you are so open about your story and that you share. And it was just a nice conversation with you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Remington. That was a really great conversation for me as well. And it was a pleasure to get to know you and also to discover your podcast, Deeper Energy too. I've been listening, so it's really great.
Hey, thank you. That's nice to hear. Yeah, then I guess with that, we'll just, before it gets awkward, we'll just say goodbye. No, too late for that.
Too late.